Greetings, folks. Brian Benz here, Cloud Advocate at Microsoft. Welcoming you to another JDConf 2024 on-demand session. In this session, Reza Rahman, Principal Program Manager for Java and Azure at Microsoft, is going to show you how to implement Hyperscale Jakarta EE Platform as a Service on Azure. He uses Red Hat's JBoss EAP on App Service for a pretty cool demo that uses Postgres, Azure CLI, the Azure portal, and the Azure Web App Deploy command to deploy and run the application. And he'll wrap up with some options for scaling and managing your application on Azure App Service. Check it out.
Hello, everyone. This is Reza Rahman. In my day job, I'm Principal Program Manager for Java on Azure. Today, I'm really happy to be doing this presentation. What I'm going to be talking about is basically how to run Jakarta EE applications on the Azure cloud, but in a fully PaaS managed fashion. In particular, that thing is called App Service JBoss EAP. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Actually, this particular talk is not going to be so much about slides. I do have a few slides. It's very minimal. A majority of the time, I'm actually going to show you what the thing is. I think that's a much more effective way of communicating precisely, what we mean when we say running Jakarta EE applications in a fully managed fashion in a hyperscale cloud like Azure. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get rolling. So here's JBoss EAP and App Service. Basically, believe it or not, we are the only top-tier cloud that offers such a service for Jakarta EE developers. It's a fully managed experience, as I said a few times now. What that means, functionally speaking, is that you just deploy your application. You don't worry about anything else. So the environment is taken care of for you, and a whole host of sort of operational and development concerns are also taken care of for you. So what are some of these things? Well, these are things like load balancing across different clusters, having actually a stateful cluster if you want one, doing the deployment across all instances of the cluster, doing auto scaling up and down if that's something you wish to do, monitoring and all kinds of observability. And again, I think a lot of these things are going to be more apparent when I actually show you in practice what do these things actually mean. Security, update notifications, and really a whole host of other things, a small fraction of which I will show you when we actually do the live demo. The other thing, aside from all of these sort of servicey things, we also have APIs around that, right? So ultimately, when you have a service, you got to deploy and manage it somehow. And we actually offer a number of ways you can do that. So a few other ways that I'll be showing you right today actually is through the IDE, like Visual Studio Code, doing it through Maven. I'll be showing you the Maven code. Actually, that's the heart of sort of my demo today. I was hoping to show you GitHub Actions. I didn't quite get to it yet. I'll show you in a moment, though. Maybe by the time you're seeing this talk, it'll already be available to you, and you can see how all of that works. And then the other thing I want to mention a little bit is that there are some restrictions, right? So when you have something that is put into App Service, which is our premier sort of PaaS tier, right? So when we talk about PaaS, really for the most part, we say App Service. The way App Service works is that it makes it difficult to provide absolutely everything, right? So when you're talking about PaaS, there's going to be some limitations. So the most tangible limitation for JBoss users is that you will no longer have access to the JBoss console, but you'll see in a moment that that's actually not a very big loss, right? So because a lot of the functionality that would be encapsulated by the console is actually already in sort of the App Service experience and App Service UI. The other thing you cannot do is hand edit the JBoss XML file, because that's going to really mess up the way we actually try to manage the JBoss EAP runtime. But what you can do is hopefully something you are already doing, and that is using the JBoss CLI to do the configuration of JBoss EAP. It's a more modern and a more automated fashion of doing configuration anyway, as opposed to hand editing these XML files. And I will show you, if you haven't seen the JBoss CLI in action before, that's also going to be part of the demo. Last thing I'll mention, it's a little bit of a commercial concern, but it is an important concern if you're going to use this in production. The thing that we are developing today and showcasing today is not just sort of a solo thing that Microsoft is doing. It's actually a joint endeavor between Red Hat and Microsoft. And when it comes down to things like support, we actually behave much like a single company. When we are talking about this particular service, And when you spin up JBoss EAP this way, you actually get JBoss EAP support licenses automatically out of the box. So if you want to find out more about App Service JBoss EAP, there's a URL there. Don't worry about memorizing the URL. Honestly, open up your Google or open up your favorite web browser and just type in JBoss EAP Azure, and it will land you in the right place. So let's move forward, and we're going to jump into the demo right away. So let me explain the demo. I will be doing a demo for sure. That's pretty much I hope most of the presentation today. But I've done the demo in a way that you can do it as well. So here's what I've done. All of the demo setup instructions I have put on a GitHub repository, on my personal GitHub repository, and this is the URL for it. So hopefully you can read the URL. If you cannot, find me on GitHub, and it'll be relatively apparent which repository we're talking about. And what this repository does is that it outlines step by step precisely how I set up the demo so that you can set up the demo yourself and see how this entire experience actually looks like. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and actually jump into the demo. So here are the instructions. This is my GitHub repository. And basically, I don't have a whole lot of time here. I'm pretty time bound, and hopefully time bound enough to catch your attention. But basically, I can't do everything, obviously, from scratch, right? It would be impossible. I'd run out of time. So basically, what I've done here is I've cheated, right? So I'm doing a live coding for sure and live deployment for sure. But basically, what I've done is I've done a bunch of setup ahead of time, right? So, and these are all of the setup instructions that I have documented for you so that you can do it yourself. So I have JDK 11 installed, I have VS Code installed, I've downloaded this repository onto my machine, and I already have set up an Azure subscription. The application that I'm going to be showing you is not a trivial application. It is a CRUD application, and because it is a CRUD application, it needs a database. We're using another managed service, which is PostgreSQL on Azure. So here's the setup instructions on how to do that, and again, I have done that ahead of time. You need to obviously set up JBoss EAP as well. Actually, this is relatively quick. But regardless, I've done that for us as well, primarily because I needed to set up the rest of the things. I set up environment variables because I want to show you how that works. Similarly, I've set up health check, I've set up auto scaling, I've set up authentication, and all of that, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff that I have already set up for you. I'll show you all that setup just in a moment, very briefly, and I'll also demo for you how all that setup looks like. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do a deployment. I could do it from VS Code. I'm going to show you how to do it in VS Code. Honestly, VS Code is, in this case, probably unnecessary, and I'm a bit old-fashioned. I like you doing the command line. I'm going to be actually doing the deployment through the command line, but I'll show you how to do it in VS Code as well. So let's hop back into the actual setup. Here's the Azure portal, right? So here's my setup here, and it's a little bit difficult to look at because the Azure portal is a little bit busy, so I can't show you everything, but I'll show you the key pieces here. So here's the database. So here's Azure database for PostgreSQL. Hopefully you can read that really tiny font. And basically the database is up and running. Let me see if I can do that, and then show you a little bit of activity on the database. So you can see that there is a database up and running. It is doing something. Okay, it is up and running. We won't spend too much time on this, but trust me, there's a database up and running, and we have essentially JBoss EAP and App Service up and running. So this is the JBoss EAP and App Service instance. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I will walk through. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to open up what's called a log stream. Okay, so the log stream is going to be useful for us in a moment here, and you'll see why. So all this is saying is that there's a JBoss EAP up and running. I can tell that by looking at the log stream. Let's see if we can increase the font on the log stream a little bit so you can also see it. But basically, the log stream is exactly what it sounds like. It is basically telling me what is going on this running instance of JBoss EAP that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this for now. And now we're going to hop back into VS Code. So here's the code, and here's the application in VS Code. I'm not going to be doing a whole lot in VS Code. All I really want to tell you is that this is a very simple application. It just uses Jakarta EE. So here's the only sole dependency of this app. If I hop back down here a little bit, is only the Jakarta EE API. Okay, hopefully for a Jakarta EE developer, this is not big news. So let's shut this down. And what I'm going to do now is go back to the command line and actually begin the deployment. Okay, so here's the deployment. And I had it a little bit beforehand, so I don't need to type the whole thing, but I will explain the syntax here. So we're doing MVN. We're doing a clean end package like we always do for a Java application. It's going to deploy create a WAR file for me. And then the real heavy lifting is actually happening. Oh, I do need to, this is not the right one. So let me get you the right stuff here. Okay. So the heavy lifting is actually going on with Azure Web App Deploy. Right. So we're doing the deployment through the Azure plugin, and I'll show you the Azure plugin in a moment. So let's get this going. So there's a compile. The WAR file is built. Yeah, building now. Okay, while this is going on, we're going to begin looking at the code because we don't have a whole lot of time. I can see that the deployment is starting. So let me show you the key part of it. So the guy that's doing the heavy lifting right now is essentially the Azure Web App plugin. So let's take a look at the Azure Web App plugin. Here's the Azure Web App plugin. I've specified my app name here. Hopefully you can see it. I'm going to try to increase the font a little bit. I've specified Java 11. I've specified JBoss EAP. I have specified that I want a Postgres jar file, and I'm uploading that through the Maven plugin. I am specifying that I want a JBoss module. I'm specifying that I want a JBoss CLI. I'm specifying that I have a startup script, and I am also saying that I'm deploying this WAR file. So that's the actual deployment that hopefully will be happening very soon. In fact, the deployment is happening. So you can see that the Postgres jar file is being deployed, the CLI is being deployed, the module is being deployed, the startup script is being deployed. And now the WAR file is being deployed. So the deployment should start momentarily here. Okay, so there's the deployment. So the deployment you can see in the live in the live stream. So that is what the deployment is happening right now. The deployment takes a little bit of time. So let's begin exploring the other aspects of it. So going back to where we were. And so this is the app. Showed you the POM XML file. These are the key pieces that you need to know about. So first, let's take a look at the startup file. So in the startup file, each time there's an instance started, we're calling the startup script. Okay, and in the startup script, we are simply invoking this JBoss CLI command. Hopefully, you've seen that before. In the JBoss CLI command, what we are doing is, all we're really doing is installing the database driver. So here that is. So you can see that I'm installing the Postgres jar file. Okay, there's a Postgres jar. There is the subsystem that I'm creating for Postgres. And here is the actual data source configuration. Now, when you look at the data source configuration, you will see that some values are not actually in here. These are environment variable references, and the environment variables I've actually set up in app service. So you can see that's what's going on here. And then finally, you have the module file. This is really nothing much more than a reference to the Postgres jar file. And really, that's about it. Right? So the CLI is just installing the database driver. So let's go into the app service portal and show you a few things. Okay, so the first thing is the environment variable references that I talked about. So here are the environment variable references. You can see that I've set up DB host, the password, the username. Okay, so all of these things do not need to be hard-coded in the application. In fact, any such thing you can actually specify here as opposed to in the deployment file. I'll also show you that I've set up health check configuration. So because we're using auto scaling, you can actually set up a health check. So here's the health check here. Okay. Health check is taking too long. Let's skip it. But you can see that it is 100% healthy, and there's one instance running at this moment. You can also see that I have set up authentication. You'll see the authentication running in a moment. So I have set up the authentication to be essentially Azure Active Directory or Azure Entra ID, right? So my application is going to be secured through that, but there's no actual security code in the application itself. I'll show you application insights in a moment here as well. I'll also really quickly show you that this application is set up to be auto-scaled, which means it is going to scale up and down based on the demand that is put into this application. And I think that's really all I want to show you. I hope that the deployment is done. Let's take a look. If the deployment is done, yes, the deployment is done. So let's go check that it is actually done. Sometimes it is not actually really truly done. So let's go back into the live stream and make sure that the application is up and running. And I believe it is. So let's go give it a shot. So here's the application URL. We're going to try to access the application. Okay, so here I'm being given my Entra ID authentication. So let's authenticate. And here's my application. It's a very simple application. There's even a REST backend for it. Okay, and this is the REST backend. Now, final thing I want to show you before we hop back into the slide deck is application insights. So let's go back in here. And aside from the log stream, you actually have all of the log entries going into application insights already. So that's what I'm going to show you. So let's go into the resource groups and application insights instance. Here it is. I'm going to go into the logs real quick and just say traces. Okay, these are all of the log entries that are going to be in this application. And it's going to take just a moment, but you can see there's a bunch of finding all coffees, just like I was doing the query right now. So this is all of the things that you might be used to in terms of ELK. So all of those log entries are in there at the moment. Now let's hop back in the remaining few minutes that we have. I do want to talk to you a little bit about the roadmap and how you can engage us. So in terms of the roadmap, this is what's in the roadmap. Right now, there's a built-in licensing in JBoss EAP and App Service. We are working to make sure that you can actually, if you don't want to do that and you have existing licenses, you can apply it to JBoss EAP and App Service. Right now, we only support the highest App Service tier, highest hardware profile. We're working to make sure that you can use lower capacity App Service tiers. We're reducing even the pay-go pricing. Right? So the built-in pricing that you have, we're trying to reduce that. We are right now, App Service JBoss EAP is not enabled in the App Service free tier. We're working to enable that for you. And then finally, very soon, you may have known that JBoss EAP 8 is now available and it supports Jakarta EE10. We are working to enable that on JBoss EAP and App Service. And similarly, in the future, we'll be enabling Java SE 17 along with that as well. Okay, so that's about all I really want to say. So again, JBoss EAP and App Service, if you're a Jakarta EE developer, this is the thing for you on a top tier cloud in terms of a managed app server offering. It's jointly developed by us and Red Hat. We're very proud of that. There is an active roadmap, but the roadmap is subject to change through feedback from you, right? So really, we think we've done a decent job, but we don't know if we've really done a decent job. So we need to engage you to understand what we've done. Have we done the right thing? Do we have the right roadmap? Do we have the right features? What is our quality? We need you to tell us all of those things. So the way you do that is simply fill out this migration survey, and it'll come right to me actually, and I will get in touch with you, and we can work together to get feedback for JBoss EAP and App Service. Or you can always find me. I'm actually very easy to find, and not very tough thing to find me whatsoever. So how do you find me? Very easy. I don't know how to make this URL any shorter for you, but it is basically Reza-Rahman, yours truly, .me/contact. So all of my contact information is available there. You can reach out to me in whatever way that you want. And honestly, really, I would be very happy to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun putting the demo together. It was a little bit challenging, I have to be honest with you, and I'm still going to be working on the GitHub Actions portion. But in general, it was a fun thing to do for me. I hope it was useful for you and gave you some insights into App Service JBoss EAP and how to run Jakarta EE applications in a managed fashion. Either way, I hope to see you soon. So, ciao.
Thanks for watching. Check out this and more at jdconf.com. you.